Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. So today our topic for discussion is tibia. Um, so just a heads up that the tibia is not a very difficult bone to study, but you should study, ideally you should be studying femur before you do the tibia. Um, we'll explore the main gross anatomical points of the tibia and the main weight-bearing parts because in the leg, the main weight-bearing bone is the tibia. Okay, not the fibula. The fibula merely acts as a point of attachment. We'll cover its major surfaces, anatomical features, and their functional significance, along with some key muscular ligaments and attachments. But mainly, attachments are not part of this lecture. We'll focus on the gross anatomical part and the osteology section. Okay, so here you can see in the leg, your main weight-bearing bone is tibia. Okay, so which area is the leg? The leg is the area between the knee joint and the ankle joint. And the area between the hip joint and the knee joint is the thigh, in which we studied the femur. So in the thigh, similar to your arm, in the arm you have the humerus, which is a single bone. It's the single weight-bearing bone here. And in the thigh, you have the femur, which is a single bone. But just like you have the radius and ulna in the forearm, you have the tibia and fibula in the leg. Okay. So moving on, there are two bones in the leg. There's tibia and then there's fibula. And can you see this rounded sesamoid bone on the tibia? This is the patella. Okay. Moving on. So the fibula lies laterally. It's shorter and it's not a weight-bearing bone, as I told you before. The tibia, however, lies medially. It's longer than the fibula and it's a weight-bearing bone and it's derived from the Latin word, which means flute. So we have, this is a weight-bearing bone and this is the upper part of the tibia, as you can appreciate on this bone. And as we go distally, this is the lower part of the tibia, which extends to form the, can you see this? Can you see this? This extends to form the malleolus. Which malleolus this is, we will understand it when we do the lecture. Otherwise, it'll be like, I'll give the suspense away. Okay, moving on. So the fibia and tibia are held together by the interosseous membrane. Just like we studied the interosseous membrane between the radius and the ulna and the forearm, there's a similar interosseous membrane in the leg between the fibula and tibia. Moving on, so if you take the tibia as a long bone itself, we know that there's a proximal expanded end and then there's a distal end which extends to form the malleolus, and then we have the shaft. Okay. And if to understand the parts of this bone better, we divide the tibia into three parts. We have a proximal part, and then we have a middle part, which is the middle third of the bone, and then we have the distal end. Okay. So the tibia articulates proximally at the knee joint. So the bigger expanded part on the tibia is the upper end, and the thin expanded part, which extends to form the malleolus, is the distal end. Okay. Okay. So when we're talking about, and another important thing we can see is that there's a tuberosity present and on the anterior side of the tibia, and it's a very prominent tuberosity, as you can see here. So this tuberosity is pretty prominent. We're going to study it a little bit later, but that's how you know that this is the upper end. The upper end is expanded, it has a tuberosity in the anterior end, and the distal end extends to form the malleolus, namely the medial malleolus. Okay. So we've seen this before, that there's proximally there's a knee joint and distally there's the ankle joint. We have an interosseous membrane connecting the tibia to the fibula. And now to look at it in a little bit more depth. So looking at this in depth, we know that this is the anterior part of the tibia. This is the tibial tuberosity, and this is the posterior part. So on the posterior side, you can see that there's a little bit of a concavity here, right? And namely, the proximal end of the tibia has two shelf-like projections known as the condyles. Now, the condyles, I'm going to hold the bone like this for you. Can you see these two condyles? These two condyles. Can you see them here? So this is one condyle and this is another condyle. So these two condyles are pretty important because this is the superior articular surface. So to this superior articular surface articulates with the femur at the knee joint, right? So for example, if I take a femur and I show it to you here. So for example, this is my femur and this is my tibia. You can just connect the two bones like this, and this is your knee joint. And I'm going to have another bone, the fibula here, right? So the fibula is going to be here, and this is the tibia, and this is the femur. So this is like a knee joint. And this is the superior articular surface. So the superior articular surface of the tibia has two condyles, right? There's a medial condyle and there's a lateral condyle. As you can see here, there's a medial condyle and then there's a lateral condyle. Okay. These are gently concave. As you can see on this image, on this bone also, these are a little bit concave, right? Why are they concave? Because they allow for a little bit of a depression or a bowl-like space for some important structures like the medial and lateral meniscus to be placed there to deepen the sockets for the articular surfaces of the condyles of the femur, because we're making the knee joint here, right? So we have a medial condyle and we have a lateral condyle. As we can see that there's a medial condyle and the lateral condyle, right? So here, let's appreciate these. So your text says that the medial condyle is oval and it's aligned anterior posteriorly. So this one, you can see this one. Okay, so this is oval and it's aligned anterior posteriorly, and the lateral condyle is a little bit smaller. As you can see, this one is smaller than the medial one. The lateral condyle is smaller, circular, and between these two condyles here, this area, exactly this area, between these two condyles lies the intercondylar eminence, which includes the medial and lateral intercondylar tubercles. So if you can see better on this image, we have this part is the intercondylar eminence, and this part and this part, these two tubercles that are raising from these lateral and medial condyles, these two tubercles, in between this area is the intercondylar eminence, right? So basically the intercondylar eminence is present between the two medial and lateral intercondylar tubercles. And if you study it a little bit more closely, anterior posteriorly they give attachments. Can you see that here there will be an attachment here, and then on the posterior side here. Okay, so here there are two attachments. There you can see a little bit of a groove can be seen on the anterior and posterior side. And these grooves are important because they give attachment sites for horns of the menisci and cruciate ligaments. The menisci and cruciate ligaments are very important structures of the knee joint, as you will see in pictures further on. So we have the medial tibial condyle here. We have the proximal end of the tibia has two shelf-like projections. We have the medial tibial condyle, and then we have the lateral tibial condyle. We can see this very clearly, right? And we've studied that the medial tibial condyle was oval and aligned anterior-posteriorly, and the lateral one was small and circular. Here you can see, as I was showing to you. So this is the medial one and this is the lateral one. And here is the intercondylar eminence, and these two are the tubercles. And we have a groove here and here, anterior and posterior side, for the attachment of the menisci and the cruciate ligaments of the knee joint. Okay, so the medial half of tibial plateau, and both these condyles add up to create a plateau, because this area, the articular surface on the top area, on the superior area of the tibia, creates a plateau, right? So the plateau is made by these two condyles. There's a lateral half of the tibial plateau, and then there's a lateral half of the tibial plateau. Okay. So moving on, we have the intercondylar eminence, and then on this extra, I included this extra to show you very clearly. Can you see this area? So this is the intercondylar eminence, because in some sclerotic joints, we can see that this disintegrates and this space increases. So it's very important to appreciate this intercondylar eminence when you are looking at a patient who has pain in the knee joint, and you just got their x-ray done, and it's a woman who is above 50 or 45, and you know that maybe maybe she has symptoms of arthritis. So you're going to very clearly look at this joint, you're going to look at its surfaces, and especially you're going to look at the intercondylar eminence, okay? Because it will be a good marker to show you the health of the joint. Now the menisci. What are basically menisci? Menisci are crescent shaped. Can you see that they're like half moon shaped? So they're crescent shaped intracapsular fibrocartilaginous structures situated on each tibial facet. So this is one tibial facet and this is the other tibial facet. Why are we calling it facet? Because it's articulating with the femur here. So why are these fibrocartilaginous structures present? Nature has created, Allah has created these menisci to help give a more socketed bowl-like area for the femoral condyles to articulate. So we have a medial meniscus and we have a lateral meniscus. Moving on. Can you appreciate these meniscus here? So there's a lateral meniscus and there's a medial meniscus, right? And this is your knee joint. Now, these are the femoral condyles. This is your tibia. These are your tibial condyles on which rest the menisci, and this is your fibula. So this all together is the knee joint. Moving on, the menisci are wedge-shaped in cross-section. If you can see them in cross-section, they're sort of wedge-shaped. Which bone is this? This is the patella. The menisci widen and deepen the tibial articular surface that receive the femoral condyles. Okay, now we have two grooves here. There's a posterior groove and there's a anterior groove. What is the importance of these grooves? These grooves, they give attachment to, uh, uh, they provide attachments to the menisci, the anterior horn of the menisci and the posterior horn of the menisci. And why are these menisci important? They deepen that cavity to give better articular ability, articular facing ability to the femoral condyles, right? Now we have two ligaments also attached here. Can you see that there's an anterior cruciate ligament and there's a posterior cruciate ligament? So those grooves that I just showed you also offer attachment to these two ligaments, the anterior cruciate ligaments and the posterior cruciate ligaments. So this is that area that I was talking about, right? So can you also appreciate that here, this is the intercondyle fossa of the femur, and this is the intercondyle eminence of the tibia. So this the tibia, this heavily shaded white area is the patella, and then we have the tibia, right? And then we have the lateral femoral condyle, the medial femoral condyle, and we have the medial condyle of tibia and the lateral condyle of tibia. Okay, anteriorly below the tibial plateau is the prominence of bone, which I told you exactly here is the tibial tuberosity, right? Below the tibial tuberosity is the prominence of the bone, the tibial tuberosity. Below the tibial plateau is the tibial tuberosity. Now, why is the tibial tuberosity important? The tibial tuberosity helps to insert a ligament. Which ligament is this? So we have the quadriceps muscle. The quadriceps muscle is actually four complete muscles of the anterior part of the thigh. These quadriceps muscle converge distally onto the patella. So there are four muscles that all of them converge onto the patella, which is the largest sesamoid bone in the body. Now, when they converge onto the patella itself attaches to this tibial tuberosity. So this tibial tuberosity is the identification or the marker on which the patella is attaching. And what's the patella bringing? The patella is bringing the convergence of the four muscles of the anterior thigh, right? So sometimes we get this special kind of condition which is called quadriceps tendinopathy, right? What's it called? Quadriceps tendinopathy. What's quadriceps tendinopathy or quadriceps tendinitis? It's the inflammation of the quadriceps tendon. Can you see this quadriceps tendon? This gets inflamed, and it's due to overuse injury, and it's aggravated with activities involving bending or straightening the knee, right? So what are the causes? Excessive load, stress, and that sort of leads to a degenerative process in the quadriceps tendon. So it's an overuse injury, or it can be due to weak quad muscles. It can be present in, it will be, if the woman is above 45 years old or 50 years old, it will usually be present in women who have osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis or who have degenerative changes in their joints. Okay, so we have these muscles: rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, vastus intermedialis, and then the quadriceps tendon. All of these, A, B, C, D, can you look at these? These are sort of labeled for you. So this is the quadriceps tendon, and these are all your muscles, starting from the rectus and then the vastus lateralis, medialis, intermedialis, all of them insert onto the quadriceps tendon. So now you know that someone has quadriceps tendinopathy. What are you going to do? You're going to give rest, icing, and you're going to gradually increase the activity of this person. So first of all, it's complete rest for about 5 days, 7 days, depending on how much pain they're in. And you're going to get them to do ice applying there. You have these ice packs. So you're going to give them to apply them for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however much they can bear it, right? So, and you're going to give them knee braces. You're going to tell them to get physiotherapy. NSAIDs can be given to reduce the pain. Also, NSAIDs have a very important part in reducing the inflammation near those joints. So they actually help to repair the muscle. And you could then get an X-ray done and get an appointment or refer them to an orthopedic surgeon to see if there's need of arthroscopic surgery, which is not very common. And then injections of PRP. Okay, now moving on, this is the tibial plateau. We've studied the tibial tuberosity also. Now, on the anterior surface, we have another important part, which is called the Gerdy's tubercle. Now, can you see the Gerdy's tubercle? The Gerdy's tubercle is faceted prominence on the anterior surface of the lateral tibial condyle. Okay, so can you see on the lateral tibial condyle here? There's a Gerdy's prominence. Why is the Gerdy prominence important? Because it receives the distal end of an important tract called the iliotibial tract. So the iliotibial tract is like this muscle that basically the tensor fascia lata, it attaches to it extends all the way on the lateral side of the thigh, and it attaches to the Gerdy's tubercle, right? Why is this important? Because this area receives two muscles, the tensor fascia lata and the gluteus maximus, right? So proximally, it attaches two muscles, the tensor fascia lata and the gluteus maximus. Now, we have a syndrome called the iliotibial tract syndrome, and it's a common overuse injury in cyclists or athletes. And the pain compared to the quadriceps tendinitis, the pain is going to be near the patellar tendon or right just a little bit above the patellar tendon on the anterior side of the thigh. But in iliotibial tract syndrome, the pain is going to be on the lateral side of the knee, because the Gerdy's tubercle is receiving the iliotibial tract on the lateral side of the knee, right? So the pain is going to be present on the lateral side of the knee, and management includes rest, physiotherapy, foam rolling, sometimes corticosteroid injections, or surgical release in refractory cases. Now we have another line which is very important, and this is the soleal line, right? So on the posterior side, of the proximal half of the tibia, you have this line. This line sort of curves, right? It's like it's sort of like in an S shape. So it sort of curves it curves posteriorly from the lateral condyle to the inferiorly to the medial side. So this soleal line is important because it allows attachment for the soleus muscle. Can you look at the soleus muscle? So that's why this muscle is important, because it attaches to the soleal line. Now we have the tibial shaft. Why are the shafts of long bones important? Because they help us in identifying the borders of the bone. Now the tibial shaft, quickly, as you can see, this is the fibula and this is the tibia, right? So this is a cross section of a leg, and we can see that this is the fibula, this is the tibia, this is the anterior side, this is the posterior side, this is the medial side, and this is the lateral side. We're looking at the MRI of a cross section through the right leg. Now look at the fibula, appreciate the tibia. Now when we're talking about the tibia, we're going to talk about three borders, right? If you hold the bone, it's going to feel like a prismoid. If it's prismoid, it has three borders and three surfaces. So first of all, we have the anterior border, right? When we're talking about the anterior border, wait a second. Okay. I don't know. Okay, we're back. So when we're talking about the borders, we're first going to talk about the anterior border, right? So the anterior border, where does it start from? It starts from just below the tibial tuberosity and all the way continues to the anterior border of the medial malleolus. So remember this medial malleolus I told you? So this extended part of the bone is the medial malleolus. So where does the anterior border start from? It starts just below the tibial tuberosity. It runs all the way, and it's sort of, when you run your finger down, it sort of curves to go to the anterior border of the medial malleolus. Okay, now this is the anterior border. Moving on to the medial border. The medial border itself, it starts near the medial condyle of the tibia. So look at this. So this is the medial condyle of the tibia, right? This is the medial condyle. So it starts near the medial condyle of the tibia, and it runs right down to the posterior border of the medial malleolus, right? Posterior border. So the anterior border was ending on the anterior border of the medial malleolus, and the posterior border is ending on the posterior border of the medial malleolus, and it is starting from the below the medial condyle. Okay. Now we have an interosseous border. The interosseous border, why is it important? Because it is offering the attachment to the interosseous membrane. I told you that the interosseous membrane attaches on the interosseous or lateral border, right? Because the fibula and tibia are connected with the interosseous membrane in the middle. So the interosseous border starts just below the medial border and it runs all the way to end, not the medial border. The interosseous border starts just below the lateral condyle. We studied that the medial border starts just below the medial condyle, right? So the lateral border starts just below the lateral condyle, and this is also known as the interosseous border, and it runs all the way to the anterior border of the fibular notch. So this is the anterior border of the fibular notch, right? So this is the fibular notch. This is the fibular notch because it allows for the fibula to attach here, to articulate here, and the lateral border ends on its anterior aspect. Okay, understood? These borders are very important. Moving on, we can see that there's an anterior border, posterior border, lateral border. Since we have three borders, I told you whenever you have three borders, you have how many surfaces? Three. So we have a medial surface which is present between the anterior border and the medial border. So this is the medial surface. Then we have the lateral surface, which is present between the anterior border and the lateral border and or the interosseous border. So this is the lateral surface, which is also known as the extensor surface. Why is it known as the extensor surface? Because all the extensor muscles attach here. So this is the tibia and this is the fibula, and this section in the cross section, you can see that this part is giving attachment to the extensor muscles. Okay. And then we have the posterior surface. The posterior surface, I'm going to turn the bone around. You can see that the posterior surface lies between the posterior border and the lateral border. Okay. Now, this part is also known as the flexor surface. Why is it called the flexor surface? Now, the posterior border here, don't get confused. It's the same thing as the medial border. So it's also known as the flexor surface. Why? Because all of these flexor muscles are present on the posterior surface. All right. Now, the distal tibia is important because we have the facet for the fibula here. The most prominent feature of the distal tibia is the medial malleolus. I told you this is a very prominent feature. This will tell you that this is the distal part or the inferior part of the tibia. The upper part is expanded to form two condyles and the lower part extends to form the medial malleolus, right? The medial malleolus, the lateral surface of the medial malleolus, if you can see this lateral surface, the medial malleolus lateral surface is covered in articular hyaline cartilage and it articulates with the talus at the ankle joint. So where's the talus of the ankle joint? I'll show it to you here. Can you see this? So and the inferior surface of the tibia, if you can see this inferior surface, it's of the tibia, it's covered in articular cartilage and articulates with the talus, right? So this lateral part articulates with the talus and this inferior surface also articulates with the talus. Now, can you see here? So this lateral surface and this inferior surface is articulating with the talus, and this is the talus bone, right? So the tibia and medial malleolus form the medial part of the articulation of the ankle joint. As you can see, this is the medial malleolus and this is the medial part of the ankle joint. On the lateral aspect of distal tibia, articulates with the distal fibula at the fibular notch. So this is the lateral surface. This was the medial malleolus. This is the lateral surface. On the lateral surface is a fibular notch here. Why is this fibular notch important? Because it articulates with the distal fibula at the fibular notch. You can see that in this image here, right? Muscle attachments are not part of this lecture. All done. Thank you guys. Hope this video was helpful to you. Best of luck.